Hey there, everybody. Today I was going to go ahead and do the roundup for the Intel 3930K, the AMD 8350, and what was supposed to be the 3770K. However, I got a bad motherboard for the 3770K, so that was not able to be included in this. Um, but that being said, I want to go ahead and start into my results here. Uh, First off, let me tell everybody that this was for my system alone and the utilities that I used for benchmarking. Um, so first up we have the Cinebench 11.5. This was with both CPUs stable at 4.9 gigahertz, um, which I had used which I basically used both of them as an everyday frequency. So that was 4.9, and as you can see, a very sizable difference. The AMD, I believe, was at 8.41, and the Intel was a 14 point something with the score. Um, but again, a huge difference, but that was expected. With OpenGL, I did two tests here. This was with my 7970 at 1300, 1700 for both chips. But different frequencies. So with the difference frequency of 4.9, which I use as my daily um, stable for both chips, and as high as I could go for the 5.2 gigahertz for both of them. As you can see, quite a bit of difference for frame rate. I was actually kind of surprised by this. Sitting at the low 80s to mid 80s for AMD, to 110 to 115 for the Intel. Um, and I was quite shocked kind of by this, considering I use VSync for a lot of my games, and I like to have my refresh rate as high as possible on my monitor, so frames per second means a lot to me. So again, that was quite shocking to me. Alright, so here we did 3D Mark 11 at 1280 by 720 at 4.9 gigahertz. I don't have the bot version, so I couldn't do it with the my monitor size. Um, so I had to do it by the 1280 by 720. These were my scores with the stock clock for the Crossfire 7970s. This is going from one GPU from Cinebench, now using Crossfire full screen. And again, both chips at 4.9 gigahertz, and you can see relatively similar score with the graphics, but everything else Intel has seemed to kind of dominate. Alright, so this is when I used again 1280 by 720, 4.9 gigahertz Crossfire. However, I used as high as my graphics cards would go stable, which would be 1270 by 1650. And again, these would be the scores for that. Similar graphics, but Intel, of course, pulled away with everything else. Alright, my Heavens benchmark. I was able to do it 2560 by 1440 extreme settings, 4.9 gigahertz for both CPUs. Crossfire stock 925 by 1375. You can see the Intel score, AMD score there, and you can see the frames per second average, minimum, and max. And for the most part, AMD held its own here, um, which I was happy with. The fact that it stuck with Intel, the 3930K, I was quite pleased. Again, same benchmark, same settings. However, I just went with a higher Crossfire, which was 1270 by 1650, and you can see the scores. Again, Intel won slightly. Considering the price of these chips, I would say for performance, AMD for this benchmark had done quite well. I decided to go 1920 by 1080 since some people don't have the big monitors. So again, I just went down in resolution size, 1920 by 1080, same everything, 4.9 gigahertz, crossfire stock. Again, you can see the scores here. They'll be higher, obviously, with the resolution coming down in size. But again, what was surprising to me, the max frames per second, and AMD had won on this benchmark. Alright, so 1920 by 1080 again, stream settings, 1270 by 1650, however, with the crossfire 7970s. You can see the scores here. Intel has won this benchmark. Okay, so Battlefield 3, how I did this was I went to the mission going hunting and I started recording from right when the jet takes off to the bogey engagement. I just left the screen facing forward to give me the most accurate numbers I could get, basically, without throwing in a bunch of variables. What I found very interesting with this is because this is a game that I play, frames per second mean a lot to me. Intel basically killed it with this benchmark, which I was quite shocked by, and a little disappointed AMD's performance compared to Intel, now that I see what Intel is doing. And especially, as you can see with the average, because I have a 120 hertz monitor, if I can keep the averages higher, the better off. I could set my refresh rate on my computer to match my frames per second, or VSync my frames per second. So 120 average basically is what you're looking for, which I was able to get with an Intel 3930. Alright, so here I used same exact thing for the benchmark for Battlefield 3. I just upped my crossfire settings for this test. But again, Intel has done basically pretty well. AMD kind of caught up with this when I upped my crossfire. But again, Intel won. Again, if you look at the average, keeping that over 120 is very important for VSync. So, yeah. So as you guys could see, basically Intel kind of dominated the whole everything. I shouldn't say dominated, but they won. And in some tests, they won by a lot. So, all right, guys. Short and sweet conclusion. First off, I'm not an Intel fanboy. I'm not an AMD fanboy. I just simply go by the data, and the data here supports the Intel 3930K in pretty much every benchmark that I ran for my system. I was quite surprised Intel actually had done so well with the frames per second with Battlefield 3 as opposed to AMD, which to me was, shocking. Now, you have a $500 chip and you have a $200 chip. Which one's going to be best for you? Maybe you could go over my data that I just showed you guys and figure that one out, which is going to be best for you as far as price per performance. Again, thanks for watching my videos, and if you guys have any questions, please list them below or shoot me an email. Thank you.